make sure y'all stay on point with
The Puncher's Point.
What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Puncher's Point. We are here reacting to Shakur Stevenson versus Josh Padley. Shakur Stevenson defeated Josh Padley by ninth round KO. I believe Padley's corner threw in the towel, and Shakur Stevenson gets to retain his WBC lightweight championship. So now, let's talk about this fight for a little bit because, first of all, shout out to Josh Padley. Came in on 1 day's notice. The guy was an electrician. An electrician. And he came in on 1 day's notice and he put up the best fight that he could against Shakur Stevenson. That's all they could have asked for. A lot of people are starting to become fans of Josh Padley now. So, overall, regardless, Shakur got that knockout that everybody's been finally waiting for. But overall, I mean, criticism is going to keep on coming for Shakur Stevenson. Not from us, but let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about the fight strategy that they had coming into this fight. You see, as far as this fight strategy that both these guys had, I'll start off with Shakur Stevenson. So when Shakur Stevenson, his fight strategy was basically he was going to use his jab a lot, and he was going to target the body a lot, and he was going to gas him out. And then once he gassed him out, he was basically going to kind of finish the job late, like he did. And I mean, the strategy worked. Now, obviously, he was supposed to fight Floyd Schofield. However, Floyd ended up getting an illness. Replacing him was Josh Padley. So, overall, in 1 day, it's kind of hard to create a strategy. But if I had to take a guess on what it was definitely use that jab. It was definitely be the aggressor, and it was go to the body a lot. And that's exactly what he did. Now, as far as Padley, well, Shakur Stevenson is one of the best lightweights in the division right now. So, what's your strategy on 1 day's notice when nobody expects you to win? And I'm not gonna lie to you, he kind of exploited a little bit of holes in Shakur's game, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit. So with Josh Padley, what I really liked about him is he would use his jab, and he did exact kind of what Better Biev did, which was he used his jab to become the aggressor and go and kind of charge in. Now, when he went to go charge in, what I really liked about Josh Padley that a lot of guys haven't done is when they would get into the clinch and they would really be tight on the inside, Josh Padley would do some work in the clinch, and there were times where he also, like Shakur Stevenson, he would get him in trouble, and Josh Padley would kind of turn Shakur Stevenson around and he wouldn't stop. He kept giving him a fight. He kept charging forward. He kept giving Shakur Stevenson a fight, and nobody expected that from Josh Padley. Everybody thought that Josh Padley was just going to go in there and he was going to get annihilated from the jump. They thought it was just going to be light work for Shakur, but that's not what happened. And honestly, in my opinion, Padley had a lot of good moments in this fight, and there were a lot of times where Padley he landed some leather on Shakur Stevenson, and if I'm Shakur Stevenson, I'm concerned about that because now all of a sudden he targeted the body, he used his jab, and obviously when you go and you look at the fight, Shakur Stevenson, you could tell was levels above him. He was faster, he was quicker, he had more power. So yeah, obviously there was that. But what Padley did was he brought the fight to Shakur Stevenson. And not many guys have done a good job of that. Oscar Valdez couldn't do that. Edwin De Los Santos tried, but he couldn't. Harrington couldn't. So Yoshino, he couldn't. So overall, Josh Padley did what a lot of guys couldn't do, and he did it on 1 day's notice, which was bring the fight to Shakur. I think Padley realized that he wasn't quicker than Shakur. He wasn't faster than Shakur. He probably didn't have as much power as Shakur. But what he did have was he did have the will to fight. You get called on 1 day's notice, you got to make the best of it, especially when nobody even cares to know who you are. So when he went in there, he brought the fight. He was like, look, I'm going to jab my way through. I'm going to make sure that I get him to the inside. I'm going to make sure that if he does clinch me, I am going to do some damage in the clinch. I'm going to make sure I fight him in the clinch. And that's exactly what he did. Now, so overall with strategy, I mean, if I had to pick, I got to give strategy a 7. I think both of them had a good strategy. I really like that Shakur used his jab and constantly targeted that body. And when he got him on the ropes, for the most part, he would tee off on him. What I wish Shakur did more of, I wish Shakur didn't allow him on the inside as much. I wish Shakur didn't get into a lot of back and forth exchanges with him. I wish Shakur kind of chose counterpunching a lot more and kind of picked his shots a little bit more. I wish he leaned on picking his shots more towards being the aggressor because Shakur is the best when he picks his shots and he counterpunches. Shakur is the best when he sets up his knockouts, not when he's trying to force him. So you go through the fight. He obviously Shakur Stevenson, He had the best of him throughout the whole entire fight. I gave Josh Padley the first round, and then after that, it was all Shakur Stevenson. But throughout that whole entire time, Padley would fight, and at the end, round nine, he lands a body shot on Padley, and you could tell because he kept targeting that body constantly. You could tell that those body shots were getting to him. So he hits him with the body shot, he knocks him down, gets back up, he gets him with another body shot, and he knocks him down. And then he knocks him down a third time in the ninth round to retain his championship. And now finally, Shakur Stevenson has the knockout that everybody been asking for. However, for some reason, it's still not good enough because, unfortunately, it's Josh Padley and it's not Floyd Schofield, which means everybody's going to have something to say. But regardless, it is a step up. Now, as for Josh Padley, he gained a lot of fans today. This guy went in there and he gave Shakur a fight. He didn't he didn't stay back because a lot of these guys that Shakur Stevenson fought, like for instance, Edwin De Los Santos, he was kind of moving around a lot, kind of I don't want to use the word running away, but he was kind of running away. And then Haratunyan, he had a decent fight with him, but overall Haratunyan, he didn't want to engage. Josh Padley was like, I'm gonna go in this fight, I'm gonna engage. Regardless of how it works. Win, lose, or draw, that's exactly what I'm gonna do, and he did that. So I can't hate Josh Padley. I mean, all respect to him. He went in there and he put up the best fight that he possibly could against a guy who is levels above him in the sport. So overall, I gotta give it a 7. Now, as far as excitement, not gonna lie, it was relatively exciting. I'm gonna give it a 7. It was relatively an exciting fight. It wasn't boring. It wasn't like it wasn't like one of the best fights on the card, but it was relatively exciting. I give it a 7 because it did have action. Padley did make it action packed, and Shakur Stevenson was a little more offensive in this fight than he was in last fight. So overall, I got to give them both credit. I mean, they made it as exciting as they possibly could. I got to give it a 7, but it just wasn't. It wasn't exciting enough to be like this is the fight on the card. This is the best fight on the card. It didn't to me. It didn't match Shiraz and Adames. It didn't match Zhang and Caballel. There were some fights on this card that were a lot more exciting. And overall, when you compare them to those, I think a 7 is a good place to put it. So if I had to rate the excitement of that fight, it did have a lot of action. Obviously, the three knockdowns by Shakur helps. Josh Padley staying into the fight and having his moments definitely helps. So I'm going to give it a 7, but it just wasn't better than a lot of these fights on this card. Now, as far as the impact, well, the impact you might as well give it a 5, honestly, because Shakur came in there and he did what he was supposed to do. He did what he was supposed to do. He went in there and he defeated Josh Padley and he beat him by knockout. Because if this fight went the distance, the impact would have been a lot higher for the wrong reasons. Because if he goes the distance with Josh Padley and he can't knock him out, at that point, who can you knock out? That's what everybody would have been asking. Why are we even tuning into Shakur fights if you're not going to go in there, you're not going to display dominant performances and knock people out? Why would we even go to those fights? A lot of fans of boxing, they're not Shakur Stevenson fans because they don't like the way he fights. Not me. Me personally, I like the way he fights. I love how he's a pure boxer. But a lot of people don't like that, and he needed a knockout. He needed to prove that he could knock out some of these guys in the lightweight division. When Teofimo fought Steve Claggett, and Steve Claggett went the distance, a lot of people started criticizing Teofimo Lopez, and they kept the same energy with Shakur Stevenson. So Shakur needed this knockout, and he got it. Now, there's going to be people who are still going to criticize Shakur, saying, oh, it was Josh Padley, so it doesn't mean that much. But you know what? It's a start. That's the way I look at it. It is a start. So now, hopefully, he can build off of that. So, as far as impact, besides not, he did what he was supposed to do. It's not, I can't see Shakur, gaining anything crazy over this. So I got to give it a 5. And then as far as the stakes that are on the line, his WBC lightweight championship, but even the stakes, there really wasn't anything big. Besides the championship. The championship, I think, bumps it up to a 6. But what stakes were on the line here? Josh Padley, a guy who's basically an electrician. He steps in on one day's notice, fights Shakur Stevenson. There wasn't really any build up to this. Shakur Stevenson was kind of looking down at him, and Padley had his moments where I think he earned Shakur Stevenson's respect, but you didn't have the same build up that you did with Floyd, so I can't really say that the stakes were high in this fight. I can't say that, oh, this is a very, very important fight. It was important as far as Shakur Stevenson's reputation in boxing. Well, can he knock out some of these guys at lightweight? Is he pillow fisted at lightweight? And for now, he has a building block to build off of. He has a start. So overall, I'm gonna give it a 6. And with that being said, the overall score for this fight is 6.25, and that is around second to last on this list. So, look, do I think it deserves to be that low? Maybe not, but overall, there really wasn't anything special about this fight. I mean, I'm sure Shakur Stevenson didn't want this fight. I'm sure he rather have wanted to fought Floyd Schofield. I'm sure Floyd would have probably wanted to be there. Some people are going to disagree with that. Some people are going to say they're ducking. Some people are going to say he had a real illness and he just couldn't make it. But overall, Shakur didn't want this fight. I don't think so. Josh Padley wanted this fight. He proved that he was willing to fight and he was willing to stay into the fight. But everybody knew that Josh Padley was not going to be a threat to Shakur Stevenson. That if there was going to be a threat, it was going to be Floyd that was going to be fighting that day. And it wasn't Floyd. So overall, not many people wanted to see this fight with Josh Padley, and it did have exciting moments. It was relatively like entertaining, but yes, I mean the stakes were low, the impact was low, strategy was decent, but yeah, 6.25. I feel like that's a little low, but that's where it lands mathematically on these rankings. So now what's next for Shakur? What should he do? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, him and Keyshawn might as well just make the fight happen already because clearly fights aren't being made in this division. Clearly, fights are just not being made. And Shakur and Keyshawn, I believe they will fight. I believe that they will make that fight. They're good friends and everything. I believe they're going to keep that friendship, but they will fight. And they should fight because overall, there's not big fights that are going on. You need a lightweight unification bout. It's not going to be with Tank. Loma, you're going to have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see Shakur and Keyshawn Davis. Maybe even better yet, if you could make it happen with Riyadh. Shakur versus Andy Cruz. I would like to see that. Honestly, I think that would be a good fight. If you're not talking about fighting a champion, maybe he goes and he gets that fight with Floyd Schofield. Maybe they reschedule that down the line. But I would like to see a title unification bout, and Keyshawn and Shakur Stevenson can make it happen. So I would really like to see them, kind of keep it professional and make this fight happen and give an entertaining fight for the fans. But overall, Lomachenko's still in the conversation. Tank, I don't know what Tank wants to do, so I really kind of just disregarded at that point. But we're just gonna see what happens with these guys. I would like to see those two fight. I think their styles are very similar, and I would like to see who masters that style better. So overall, with that being said, I say it's time we log off of this episode. Make sure y'all continue to tune in to the Puncher's Point. The other two fights that we covered on this card was Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol 2 and Joseph Parker versus Martin Bakole. So overall, make sure y'all definitely go check out those fights, and it's unfortunate that this card had so many replacements, but shout out to Josh Padley and shout out to Martin Bakole for stepping in on 1 day's notice to do this fight. And overall, I just really hope that we get to see the big fights at lightweight. We get to see the big fights at 135 and 140 because we deserve to see those fights. It's just a matter of who's going to make them and when are these fights going to be made. So we're just going to have to wait and see what's next for Shakur Stevenson. Hopefully it's a fight that is going to be a challenge for him and he can prove and show that he really is one of the best lightweights in this division. But we're going to have to wait. With that being said, make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. You follow, you subscribe, like, comment, share, all those types of things. Get interactive with the Puncher's Point. And last but not least, stay on point with the Puncher's Point.